Mike, we've had a couple days for the dust to settle on the Charlie Manuel being fired, resigning, whatever they're calling it, but he's no longer the manager of the Phillies. How do you look back on his tenure there? It was almost 9 years to take over 2004. What will you remember from him? What stands out?
I think he was. I think he was a nice man and a good. I think he is. It's not a was. It's not a past tense. A nice man and a good man, and I don't think an unintelligent man. I think he is a little more intelligent than some people gave him credit for, and I think most people will look back on his tenure positively. He won 5 straight division titles. That doesn't look at the history of baseball. That's a rare thing. He's had 12 seasons as a major league manager. I think not 9 or 10 of them were winning seasons in which he finished first or second in his division. I mean, and
right. He was with the Cleveland Indians before.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I honestly don't know what baseball managers do. I don't know how to measure their value and their impact. I really don't. I'm not. That's true. A lot of the things that people say about baseball managers that they do value, there's no doubt in my mind, are nonsense. But I'm not sure what they do, so I don't know how to tell you how good a manager he was. But I think he was a good person, and I think this comes at a point where it's a defensible decision. It's not about fault. I guess the direction that I want to go.
I think it ran its course. I think it gets to a point where even though these players really liked him, I don't know if they were totally hearing him anymore. Were they tuning him out? And I think it happens in sports when somebody's in there in charge so long. You need a change.
Yes.
Some people say, well, this is horrible how they handled it, the Phillies management tomorrow. They were 5-19 since the All-Star break. They were 6.5 games out of first place, and now they're 20 games back. It was falling apart. Do you wait to the end of the year? I'm sorry, you pay too much as a fan.
Nobody
for tickets. Why should you have to wait to the end of the year to see this kind of baseball? It's a bad brand of baseball right now.
Nobody ever does anything like this where somebody doesn't say they handled it horribly. I mean, that's just that's part of the deal. I don't have any problem with the way they handled it at all. I agree with you, Starkey. I mean, they clearly had the wheels had come off the wagon pretty clearly, and again, I just think there's a limited amount of time in professional sports where something like this can work, and the time I seem to have passed. They're heading in a new direction. It's a team that was very successful and has now gotten old, and now there has to be a next chapter to the story. And I don't think it's an indictment of Charlie Manuel, and I don't think it's this whole notion of fault is irrelevant. It's silly.
First of all, I was holding up a newspaper. Laura Thompson, the sports editor, had done a great job of getting some local social media stuff.
Yeah, that was a very good. Yeah, I agree.
Paper, and some guy walked by me at Shady Maple on Saturday and said, "Isn't this horrible what the Phillies did?" And I said, "Well, no, it's time." And part of it was because the fundamentals had broken down. Charlie Manuel's teams had always been known for playing good, sound baseball, okay?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm watching games, and they were just not fun to be watching sound baseball, let alone they weren't hitting anymore, okay? For the last 2 years, they've not had a 500 record. They finished just the 500. I'm sorry, they haven't had a winning record for 2 years, but 500 in the last season. This year, they're well below that mark. Whose fault is it? Can you point? I mean, is this a Ruben Amaro? Is it on a manager? Where does the fault lie?
I think it's, and we've discussed this before on this very broadcast, Starkey. I think it's Ruben Amaro's fault. I think he's done a brutal job. I think he has failed to recognize the effects of aging. I think he has overrated to the point of absurdity. Major league experience, Delman Young, Lance Nix, God have mercy on us. I do not. He has not embraced the statistical analysis that I think absolutely has to be a part of a modern baseball organization. I have a lot of problems with Ruben Amaro, and comparatively few, very, very few, with Charlie Manuel.
They hired Ryan Sandberg on an interim basis to be the manager. Hall of Fame player, and they've seen in the past Hall of Fame players don't translate to Hall of Fame coaching managers. Can this work for the Phillies? What do you think of the hire of Sandberg?
Well, there's no reason. The fact that he was a Hall of Fame manager does not preclude him being a successful manager. I mean, everybody always talks about Ted Williams. So Ted Williams was fascinated by hitting and more or less tolerated everything else about baseball. You know, of course that wasn't going to work. This is a much different animal than Ted Williams, and this is a guy who's paid his dues in the minor leagues and learned the job, which a lot of superstar players were unwilling or unable to do. And so I mean, I don't see any reason why it can't work, and I don't see any reason to like lavishly endorse Ryan Sandberg either. Let's see. I don't got no problem with it.
Time for a change. It's a pretty good change.